My name is Noam Levi. I'm 8 years old, and what happened to me still feels like a secret written between the sky and the ground. I wasn't looking for a miracle. I was just a regular kid living in Tel Aviv when something totally amazing happened. What I saw, what I heard, and what I was shown about Israel's future, and a man the world always watches on the news, Donald Trump, changed everything I thought about God, being together, and why we are here. I'm telling you this because I know it wasn't supposed to be a secret. It was a Friday morning. The sun was soft. I could smell the challah bread baking, and the streets were quiet because it was almost Shabbat. I remember thinking how peaceful everything was. Then, everything changed fast. I had just finished a video call with my cousin in Jerusalem. We were laughing about silly things, how his dog barked at a butterfly and how my favorite toy was missing a wheel. Then suddenly, I felt really dizzy. My tablet slipped out of my hands. "Noam, are you okay?" my cousin yelled through the screen. I wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come out. The air felt heavy, like time just stopped. My eyes got blurry, and everything started glowing gold instead of turning black. I wasn't scared. I was just really awake. Every sound felt far away, like I was underwater. I whispered, "Hashem," because that's how I pray. And then a whisper talked back, but it wasn't from a person in the room. "Noam?" The voice was calm and kind, like a hug that understood everything. My body felt light, like I was floating, but I could see better than ever. The walls of my room turned into soft light. I could see my house, the whole city of Tel Aviv, and the big blue sea. I heard my mom's voice crying, "Noam, please wake up." But I wasn't gone. I was being lifted up. As I went higher, the city below looked like a shiny jewel. I knew something special was calling me, something that had been waiting for right now. I remembered thinking about May 14, 2025, when we had a big celebration for Israel, and how I felt so proud. Now looking down, that pride felt like a tiny seed that was finally starting to grow into a huge tree. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't in my room anymore. I was in a place that looked ancient but also brand new. The walls were made of light. The air was sparkly like morning dew. I whispered, "Where am I?" A soft voice said, "Between what was and what will be." I turned around to see who it was, but I only saw light. It was a gentle, breathing light that felt alive. It didn't hurt my eyes, it felt warm like it remembered me. "Am I dreaming?" I asked. "No," the voice said. "You are remembering." "Remembering what?" "That love has always been your home." I felt like crying, but I wasn't sad. I saw memories of being a little kid, lighting Shabbat candles with my family, my Abba's voice blessing the bread, and how quiet the room gets when we pray. I realized that the feeling I had during those times was actually this light. The voice said, "You have carried this presence all your life, but today you will see it." Suddenly, the air moved and shapes started to form. People were there, glowing and moving like the air was carrying them. Some I knew, some I didn't. They smiled, but didn't say anything. Then the voice came closer. "Noam, you will be shown what is bigger than countries and names. You will see how everything has a reason, even when things are messy." I asked, "Why me? I'm just a kid." "Because peace is heard best by a heart that is simple and kind." A wave of calm went through me. I wasn't there by mistake, I was invited. The light started to beat like a heart, and I felt a wind, but it didn't move my hair, it moved my spirit. I was pulled through golden mist that hummed like music. I saw colors I didn't even know existed. Every color felt like a feeling. I saw a green that felt like the smell of grass after rain, and a purple that felt like the moment you win a game you worked hard for. Then a man appeared. He was brighter than everything else. My heart knew him before I could even think. "Jesus," I whispered. He smiled. He wasn't a stranger. He was someone who had always been close by, waiting for this moment. "You've known I was here, even when you didn't know my name," he said. His voice wasn't like talking. It was like peace turned into words. I just stood there. "But I'm Jewish," I said softly. He nodded nicely. "And so was I. Truth doesn't break things apart. It finishes the story." I felt something inside me open up. All my questions and prayers made sense all at once. "Why am I here?" I asked. He reached out his hand, and even though he didn't touch me, every part of me felt it. To see what being scared hides, and to carry what words can't say. Then he pointed forward. The light moved and showed me huge mountains, oceans, and cities that looked like glowing hearts. "You will see things about your land, your people, and the people who lead nations. But don't be scared. It's not about things breaking. It's about everyone waking up." We walked further into the light, and I saw a giant field. It wasn't full of flowers, though. It was full of shoes. All kinds of shoes, sandals, sneakers, even high heels. "What are these?" I asked. Jesus looked down and said, "These are the paths people took when they were looking for home. Every step matters." I saw a pair of boots that looked like the ones soldiers wore on October 7, 2025, when everyone was remembering the hard times from a few years ago. But in this place, the boots weren't covered in mud or dust. They were shining. In heaven, Jesus said, even the hardest journeys are turned into light if they were walked with love. I touched one of the shoes, and I could feel the person's heart. I could feel hope and their worry. It made me realize that everyone is just trying their best, even when they get lost. Then the sky above us turned into a giant movie screen, but it wasn't flat. It was like I was inside the movie. I saw the streets of New York and the big buildings. I saw people running around, looking at their phones, looking very busy. Then I saw Donald Trump. He was standing on a stage and thousands of people were shouting. Some were cheering and some were angry. Jesus didn't look at the crowd. He looked at the man's heart. "Do you see the weight he carries?" Jesus asked. I looked closer. It looked like he was wearing a heavy cloak made of invisible stones. "Those are the expectations of the world," Jesus explained. "People want him to be a king, and others want him to be a villain. But here, he is just a man who was given a loud voice to see if he would use it to whisper to the lonely or shout to the proud." I saw a vision of a meeting that happened just a few months ago, late in 2025. There were many leaders sitting around a big round table. They were arguing about oil and borders and money. But under the table, I saw that their feet were all touching. They were all connected, but they were too busy looking at their papers to notice. Jesus said, "They think they are making the future, but the future is already written in the way they treat the person who brings them their water." Suddenly, the room they were in started to melt, and I saw that the water was actually the prayers of regular people. Every time a kid in a faraway place prayed for their dinner, it made the table shake. "The world thinks power is about who has the most money," Jesus said, leading me to a river that flowed with silver liquid. "But look." He dipped his hand in the river and pulled out a small glowing button. This button was lost by a grandmother while she was sewing a blanket for a stranger last winter. This button has more power in heaven than a whole army because it was dropped in love. I watched as the button turned into a star and flew up into the sky. I realized that my favorite toy with the missing wheel wasn't just a toy. It was part of my story of learning how to take care of things. The light changed again, and I saw a vision of the desert. It was the Negev, near my home. But instead of just sand, I saw that the sand was made of tiny diamonds. Each diamond was a second of time. I saw a group of children playing in the sand, and they weren't just Israeli kids. There were kids from all over, speaking different languages. They were building a castle together. Every time they shared a shovel, a giant beam of light shot up into the sky. Jesus smiled at the children. "This is what I am building," he said. "The world thinks the peace of the Middle East is a document signed with a fancy pen, but I tell you it is a game of tag where no one is left out." I saw a vision of the future, just a few months from now. I saw people standing on their balconies in Tel Aviv and Haifa. They weren't looking at their phones, they were looking at each other. There was a feeling in the air, like everyone had just woken up from a very long, bad dream. I saw people bringing chairs out into the street to sit with their neighbors. I saw a man who used to be very angry walking over to someone he didn't like and handing him a piece of bread. Jesus whispered, "The Great Awakening isn't a loud noise. It's a quiet, I'm sorry." We walked to a place that felt like a library, but the books were made of clouds. "These are the books of what if," Jesus said. He opened one and I saw a version of the world where people didn't fight. It was so beautiful, it made my chest ache. I saw cities that looked like gardens and hospitals that were empty because no one was sick anymore. "Why can't it be like this?" I asked, feeling a little bit of a squeeze in my heart. Jesus looked at me very seriously. "It can be. That's why you are going back, to tell them that the what if is actually the right now, if they just choose it." He showed me that every choice we make, like choosing not to hit back when someone is mean or choosing to share a snack, makes the cloud books turn into solid ground. I saw a vision of a giant wall. It was made of iron and looked very scary. People were hitting it with hammers, trying to break it down, but it wouldn't move. And then a little girl walked up to the wall and just sang a song to it. The iron started to turn into flowers. Jesus said, "The hard parts of the world can't be broken by more hardness. They can only be melted." He showed me that the leaders of the world, like Donald Trump and the people in the Knesset, are often standing in front of walls they think they have to build. But heaven is trying to show them how to sing instead. "Is it hard to sing when you're a leader?" I asked. Jesus laughed, and it sounded like wind chimes. "It is the hardest thing in the world, Noam, because when you sing, you have to let people see your heart, and leaders are taught to hide their hearts." I saw a vision of Mr. Trump in a private room, looking in a mirror. He wasn't the man I saw on the news. He looked tired. He was holding a small picture of a child. Jesus said, "Pray for him," not because he is a leader, but because he is a person who is trying to remember his own song. Jesus took my hand, and it felt like my fingers were disappearing into a cloud of warmth. We started to walk across a bridge that looked like it was made of frozen rainbows. Below us, I didn't see water. I saw thousands of small fires. "Each fire is a home where someone is choosing to be brave," he said. I looked down and saw a house in Tel Aviv where a boy was giving his last cookie to his sister. His little fire turned into a bright orange flame that reached up and touched the bridge we were walking on. "See?" Jesus said. "The bridge is held up by the things people do when they think no one is watching." We reached a place that looked like a giant garden, but the plants weren't just green. Some were the color of a sunset, and some were a shiny silver like the stars. He showed me a tree with leaves that looked like glowing eyes. "This is the tree of seeing," he whispered. "It grows whenever someone tries to understand a person they are afraid of." I remembered a day back on June 20th, 2025. It was a very hot day, and everyone was grumpy because the air conditioning in the mall broke. I saw a man yelling at a worker, but then a woman stepped in and just offered the worker a cold bottle of water. I saw that memory now growing as a bright purple leaf on the tree. Jesus touched the leaf, and it hummed like a happy cat. Then the air around us started to swirl, and I saw a big city I'd never been to. It had huge statues and white buildings. "This is Washington," Jesus said. I saw the man from the TV again, Donald Trump. He was sitting at a desk, and there were so many papers around him it looked like he was drowning in a sea of white. But then I saw something amazing. Behind him, there was a tall figure made of golden light. It didn't have a face, but it had giant wings that were wrapped around the man's shoulders. "Is that an angel?" I asked. Jesus nodded. "Every person who has a big job has help they can't see, but they have to listen to the whisper. This man is a mirror for the world's heart. For the world's heart. He shows people their own strength and their own pride. Some people look at him and see a hero, and some see a storm. But heaven sees a soul that is being asked to choose. Will you build a bridge or a wall today?" I saw a vision of a day that happened recently on September 22nd, 2025. There was a lot of noise on the news about a new agreement between countries. People were shouting and pointing fingers. But in the vision, I saw that the actual light wasn't coming from the microphones or the cameras. It was coming from a group of students in a small classroom who were learning how to speak each other's languages. They were laughing because they kept saying the words wrong. Jesus pointed at them. "The world watches the leaders, but I watch the students. The leaders sign the papers, but the students are the ones who make the peace real. If the students stop being friends, the papers don't matter." He showed me a giant room full of mirrors. "Go inside," he said. When I walked in, I didn't see my own face. I saw the faces of people I had been mean to. I saw my friend from school when I didn't share my colored pencils. I saw my mom's face when I didn't listen. It made me feel a little bit heavy. But then, the mirrors changed. I saw those same people smiling at me. Jesus came in and stood next to me. In this place, we don't look at mistakes to make you feel bad. We look at them so you can see how to fix the light. Every time you say, "I'm sorry," one of these mirrors turns into a window. Suddenly, the room wasn't dark anymore. It was full of sunshine. We moved through the light to a place that looked like a giant map of Israel. But it wasn't a map like the one in my school. This map was breathing. I could see the hills of Galilee and the stones of Jerusalem pulsing with a soft gold light. The land is a living thing, Jesus said. It has a memory of every prayer ever said on it. I saw a vision of January 5th, 2026. It was just a few weeks ago. There was a big gathering at the Western Wall. I saw the prayers of the people looking like white birds flying up into the sky. But then I saw prayers coming from the other side of the city, too, from people who were praying in different ways. The white birds met in the sky and started to fly in a circle at the sky, making a crown of light over the whole city. They think they are different, Jesus said, but their prayers all fly to the same nest. He showed me a vision of a new kind of school that was being built. It wasn't made of bricks, it was made of ideas. I saw teachers who were telling stories about how everyone is part of one big family. I saw children playing music together, and the music was so beautiful it made the clouds turn into different shapes. This is the future that is trying to happen, Jesus said. But there are people who are very scared. They like the old ways because they feel safe. Even if the old ways make them sad, they think that if they love someone new, they will lose their own home. He showed me a man holding a heavy iron key. He was locking a gate and looking very worried. Jesus walked over to him in the vision and just breathed on the lock. The iron turned into wood and then into a vine with flowers. The man looked surprised and started to smile. Why do people like to be angry? I asked. I thought about the people I see on the news who always look like they are shouting. Jesus sat down on a rock made of light and invited me to sit too. Because anger feels like power, he said. When you are angry, you feel big, but it's a trick. Anger is like a fire that burns the house it's in. Peace feels small, like a seed. But a seed can grow through a sidewalk and break a heavy stone. People are learning this now. They're getting tired of being angry. He showed me a vision of thousands of people across America and Israel just turning off their TVs at the same time. They went outside and looked at the trees. The air felt lighter immediately. I saw a vision of a big boat in the middle of the ocean. It was full of people who were lost and didn't have a home. They were scared because the waves were very big. But then I saw people from many different countries coming in smaller boats to help them. They weren't asking what country the people were from or what they believed. They were just handing out blankets and soup. I saw Donald Trump on one of the boats, helping a little girl put on a life jacket. He wasn't talking to cameras. He was just being a person. Jesus said, "This is the hidden heart. Everyone has it." Sometimes it takes a big wave for people to remember where they put it. We walked into a valley where the grass was made of soft whispers. I could hear people saying thank you in every language. This is where we keep the gratitude, Jesus said. It's the most powerful thing in the world. He showed me how a single thank you from a person who has very little can light up a whole dark forest. I saw a vision of a woman in a hospital. She was very sick, but she took the hand of the nurse and said, "Thank you." That one word turned into a golden thread that wrapped around the whole hospital and made everyone feel a little bit better. Then Jesus showed me something that looked like a giant clock, but instead of numbers, it had pictures of people's lives. The hands of the clock were moving very fast. Time is changing, he said. It's not just moving forward, it's moving deeper. People are starting to remember things from a long time ago, not just from their own lives, but from the beginning of the world. They are remembering that they used to be friends with the stars and the wind. I saw a vision of a group of scientists looking through a giant telescope. They weren't looking for new planets. They were looking at the light between the stars and realizing it was full of love. They started to cry because they realized they had been looking for stuff when they should have been looking for the pulse. He showed me a vision of the coming months in 2026. I saw more people talking about their dreams. I saw kids like me telling their parents that they saw angels or heard the light. At first, the parents were worried, but then they started to listen. I saw a dad sitting on the edge of his daughter's bed, and she was telling him about a place like this. The dad's heart started to glow like a lamp. The children are the leaders now, Jesus said. They haven't forgotten how to see. That is why I told people to be like little children. It wasn't about being small, it was about being open. I saw a vision of a great feast. There was a long table that went across the whole desert of Israel. There was food from every culture, hummus, bread, fruit, and things I didn't recognize. People were sitting together and laughing. I saw leaders from the past and leaders from right now. They weren't wearing suits, they were wearing simple white clothes. I saw the man, Trump, sitting next to a person he used to argue with. They were sharing a piece of fruit. When will this happen? I asked. Jesus looked at the horizon. It is happening every time someone decides to be kind instead of being right. It is a feast that is always ready, but you have to bring your own chair. The light around us turned a deep, beautiful blue. Noam, look at the stars, Jesus said. I looked up and saw that the stars were actually people's souls. Some were very bright and some were dim. The dim ones aren't bad, he explained. They are just covered in dust because they are tired or sad. Your job and the job of everyone who remembers the light is to help them wipe off the dust. You don't do it by lecturing them. You do it by being a friend. I saw a vision of myself back in Tel Aviv walking to school. I saw myself stopping to talk to a kid who was sitting alone. As we talked, the dust on his star soul started to fall away, and he began to shine. What about the fighting? I asked again. I saw a vision of a dark cloud over some parts of the world. It looked like smoke. Jesus' face got very gentle. The smoke is the old way of thinking. It thinks it can win by making more smoke, but even the biggest cloud of smoke can't stop a single ray of sunshine. The light isn't fighting the smoke. The light is just being the light. Eventually, the smoke has nowhere to hide, and it just disappears. He showed me a vision of a soldier putting down his gun and picking up a guitar. He started to play a song, and the other soldiers on the other side started to sing along. The enemy didn't exist anymore because they were all part of the same song. Jesus pointed to a small, glowing ball of light in the distance. That is your home, Noam. It's time to see a little more before you go back. We started to fly, not with wings, but just by thinking about it. We flew over the oceans, and I saw the whales singing. Their songs were like prayers that kept the water clean. I saw the forests and the trees talking to each other through their roots. They were sharing news about the rain and the sun. Everything is talking, Jesus said. But humans forgot how to listen because they made too much noise with their machines and their arguments. Now they are starting to get quiet again. We landed in a place that looked like a giant playground made of light. There were children from every time in history playing together. I saw kids from ancient Israel playing tag with kids from modern America. They didn't need to speak the same language because their laughter was the same. One little boy ran up to me and handed me a ball that felt like a warm sun. "Hold this," he said. When I held it, I felt every happy thought I ever had. Jesus watched us and smiled. "This is the true state of the world," he said. "The fighting and the sadness are just a crust on the outside. Underneath, everything is a playground." I saw a vision of a woman writing a book. She was in a small apartment and she was very tired, but she was writing about hope. I saw the words leaving her pen and turning into little birds that flew out the window. They flew into the hearts of people who were feeling sad and gave them a little bit of strength to keep going. Every word written in love is a miracle, Jesus said. It doesn't have to be a famous book. It could be a text message or a note in a lunchbox. Jesus leaned toward me, and then the light behind him grew until it looked like 1,000 suns, but it didn't burn. It was just more and more love. We walked into a place that looked like a giant workshop, but instead of tools and wood, people were working with ribbons of light. "What are they making?" I asked. I saw a man who looked very old, but also very young at the same time, weaving a ribbon of bright blue into a ribbon of deep red. Jesus said, "They are weaving the stories of families. When a family decides to forgive a secret that has been kept for a long time, the thread turns gold. Look at that one." He pointed to a thread that was glowing so brightly I could almost see music coming off it. That is the story of two neighbors who didn't talk for 20 years, but today, one of them helped the other fix a flat tire. That one act changed their whole family tree forever. I saw a vision of the ocean. but I was underneath the water. I wasn't scared because I could breathe the light. I saw the whales again, but this time I saw that their songs were creating bubbles of peace that floated up to the surface and popped, spreading calm over the waves. The earth is always trying to heal itself, Jesus said. The water, the wind, and the trees are all working together. Humans are the only ones who sometimes forget to help, but look at the shore. I saw a group of people on a beach. They weren't just picking up trash, they were singing to the ocean. Every time they sang, the water became clearer. I saw that being kind to the planet is just another way of being kind to God. Then we were standing in a place that looked like a very tall mountain made of glass. I could see through the floor, and far below was the whole world. Jesus pointed to America. I saw the map of the United States, but it looked like a heart that was beating very fast. I saw Donald Trump again. He was in a large room with many people who were very loud. They were all trying to tell him what to do. But I saw that in his mind he was thinking about a small bird he saw on a windowsill. Jesus said, "He is a man of big actions, but heaven is watching his small thoughts." People think he is the one who will change everything, but he is just a mirror. If the people are angry, they see anger in him. If they are brave, they see bravery. He is there to help people decide who they want to be. The real work isn't done in the White House. It's done in the house next door to yours. I saw a vision of a giant scale, like the ones they used to use in old stories. On one side were all the big things, wars, big buildings, and famous people. On the other side was a single tear from a child who was happy to see their dad come home from work. The side with the tear was much heavier. It pulled the scale all the way down. The world gets the math wrong, Jesus said. They think big things matter more. But in heaven, the biggest thing is the smallest act of love. That is why I can use a child like you to tell this story. Your heart is big because it isn't full of important things yet. We moved to a valley where the air was full of floating seeds. Each seed had a face on it. These are the ideas that haven't been born yet, Jesus whispered. I saw one seed that looked like a new way to make power without hurting the earth. I saw another that was a way for people to talk to each other, even if they were from different religions, without getting mad. These seeds are looking for a place to land, he said. They land in the minds of people who are quiet enough to hear them. When someone stops being busy and just sits in the sun, a seed can land. Tell them to be quiet more often. Tell them to listen to the silence. I saw a vision of the desert in Israel again, but this time the sand started to turn into water. It wasn't a flood. It was a beautiful lake that appeared in the middle of the dry places. People came from all over to drink the water. I saw people from Egypt and Jordan and Lebanon and Israel all standing on the shore together. They were splashing each other and laughing like they were at a summer camp. The thirst for peace is stronger than the thirst for water, Jesus said. One day the borders will be like the lines in the sand when the tide comes in. They will just melt away and everyone will realize they are standing on the same beach. He showed me a vision of a giant library, but the books were alive. I picked one up and it was the story of a woman who lived 100 years ago. As I held it, I felt her life. I felt her joys and her hurts. We don't forget anyone here, Jesus said. Every person who ever lived is a star in our sky. No one is ever truly gone. I saw my great-grandmother in a vision. She was young and beautiful, and she was dancing in a garden of light. She waved at me, and I felt a wave of love that made my toes tingle. She is part of your light now, Jesus said. When you are kind, you are using the love she gave your mother, and your mother gave you. Then the vision changed to a very busy street in Tel Aviv. I saw people rushing to work, sounding their car horns and looking at their watches. But then I saw that every person had a golden string attached to their head, going straight up into the sky. Most people didn't know the string was there. They were pulling against it, trying to go their own way. But some people were walking in a way that made the string go slack. They were moving with the light. When you follow the string, life becomes a dance, Jesus said. When you fight it, life becomes a struggle. The string is just my love gently pulling you home. You don't have to go fast, you just have to follow the pull. I saw a vision of a dark room where a man was sitting all alone. He felt like no one loved him. He was crying. but I saw that the room was actually full of angels. They were leaning in, whispering to him, and holding his hands, even though he couldn't see them. No one is ever truly alone, Jesus said. Even in the darkest basement, I am there. Even when someone thinks they have done something too bad to be forgiven, I am there. My love is not a reward for being good. It is a gift for being alive. The man in the vision suddenly stopped crying and looked up. He didn't see the angels, but he felt a little bit of peace, and he decided to call a friend. That one call started a light that filled the whole room. Jesus showed me a vision of a giant tree that had roots that went around the whole world. This is the tree of life, he said. Every person is a leaf. When one leaf is sick, the whole tree feels it. But when the tree is healthy, every leaf is strong. I saw that some people were trying to cut off the leaves they didn't like. But every time they cut a leaf, they hurt their own branch. The secret to a happy tree is to realize that every leaf is needed, Jesus said. The brown ones, the green ones, the ones that are a little bit torn, they all make the tree beautiful. We walked through a forest made of music. Every tree was a different instrument. One tree sounded like a harp and another sounded like a flute. When the wind blew, the whole forest played a song that was so beautiful I felt like I was melting into the ground. This is the harmony of heaven, Jesus said. On earth, people are still learning how to play together. Sometimes it sounds like a mess because everyone is trying to play their own song as loud as they can. But eventually, they will learn to listen to the person next to them. Then the whole world will sound like this forest. I saw a vision of a giant wall of fire, but it didn't burn. It was a fire of truth. I saw people walking through it. As they walked through, the things that weren't real, like their pride, their fear, and their anger, fell off them like old clothes. When they came out the other side, they were glowing and pure. The truth can be scary, Jesus said, because it asks you to let go of the things you used to hide. But once you go through, you are finally free. The world is going through this fire right now. Everything that isn't built on love is being burned away so that only the light remains. He showed me a vision of Donald Trump again. He was standing in a field of tall grass. He was looking at the horizon where the sun was rising. I saw that he was thinking about all the people who were counting on him. He felt very small under the big sky. Jesus said he is realizing that he cannot do it alone. This is the moment when a leader becomes great. Not when they are strong, but when they realize they need heaven's help. Pray that he stays in that field for a while. Now pray that all leaders find their way to that field. I saw a vision of a new kind of city. The buildings were grown out of the ground like giant gourds. There were no cars, only paths where people walked and talked. The air was so clean it tasted like cold water. I saw people sharing everything. If someone needed a coat, they just took one from a tree of coats. If someone was hungry, they ate from the garden that was everywhere. This is the memory of the garden you came from, Jesus said. And it is the vision of the garden you are going toward. The middle part, the part you are in now, is just the school where you learn how to be kind enough to live there. He showed me a vision of a giant book with my name on it. He opened it and I saw pictures of my whole life. I saw myself as a baby and I saw myself as an old man with a long white beard. You have many paths, Jesus said. Which one you take depends on the choices you make every day. But don't worry, all the paths eventually lead back to me. Some just have more flowers than others. I saw a path where I was a teacher, telling children about the light. I saw another where I was a doctor, healing people's bodies. Every path had a light on it. Just follow the joy, he said. Joy is the compass I put in your heart. I saw a vision of a giant bridge connecting Israel and America. It was made of hands. Millions of people were holding hands to make the bridge. I saw people of all colors and all ways of praying. They were all holding on tight so that no one would fall. The connection between these lands is more than just politics, Jesus said. It is a spiritual bond. They are two places where people are trying to figure out how to be free. When they help each other, the whole world gets a little more freedom. Then I saw a vision of the stars again, but they started to move. They came together to form a giant face that filled the whole sky. It was a face of pure love. It wasn't a man or a woman. It was just being. I felt like I was a tiny speck of dust, but I also felt like I was the whole sky. You are everything, and you are nothing, the voice of the light said, and you are perfectly loved. I felt a peace that was so deep I can't even describe it. It was like every question I ever had was answered by a hug. Jesus took my hand one last time. It is time to go back, Noam, but remember, the light is not just here, it is inside you. When you feel scared, just close your eyes and find the sparkle. It never goes out. Tell them that the time of being afraid is over. The time of waking up has begun. The world is changing, not because of the big news, but because of the little hearts that are choosing to love. He kissed the top of my head, and it felt like a star landed on me. Everything got super bright. It felt like falling up. Take being together into every conversation, he whispered. That's how heaven comes back to earth. I felt the air in my lungs and the bed under me. Someone yelled, "He's breathing." I wasn't gasping. I was just remembering. I woke up in a hospital in Tel Aviv. The lights were bright. Everything felt slow and heavy, but also pretty. The nurses were so happy. "You're back," one said. I whispered, "No, I'm here." Now everything looks different. I can see the stories in people's eyes. I can hear the truth between their words. Even when it's quiet, it feels alive. When I go outside, the air smells better. I see the streets of Tel Aviv, but it's like I can see heaven's light in the cracks of the sidewalk. Every person looks like they are glowing a little bit. I can feel if they are happy or scared. At home, I sit by my window. What now? I ask. The answer is just, live what you saw. So I do. I tell my mom I love her all the time. I listen more. I don't get as mad. I pray for wisdom. When I hear about leaders or news, I don't see politics. I see the light trying to get through. Sometimes at night, I feel a little pulse in my chest, like that golden thread is still there. I know I didn't just get better. I was sent back to remind everyone. I started writing it all down, the pictures and the words. My friends say I'm different now. You're so calm, they say. I just tell them I stopped fighting things I can't control. The world is still the same. People still argue. But I see it differently. I see how every fight is just a chance to be kind. When I read the Torah, I see that light doesn't fight the dark. It just shows what is there. That's how I live now. If someone is mean, I bless them. If I get scared, I stay still. Every breath is special. And sometimes I still hear him. Peace is a choice, not a miracle. I realized heaven didn't send an 8-year-old boy back to give a speech. It sent me back kind. If you're hearing this, it's not an accident. Maybe you feel something too. A question or a pull. That pull is real. It's heaven calling you home. My message isn't about being in a group or a country. It's about recognizing that every heart beats with the same rhythm. The lines on the map don't define us. Jesus told me the world heals when we listen. So listen to the people who are different from you. You'll find you are hearing the same voice inside. When I think of Israel now, I don't see a line. I see a light for the whole world. And when I hear about leaders, I see people who are part of us waking up. If you heard my story, remember, your life is part of this too. Every nice word and every time you stop to breathe adds more light to the thread that holds us together. We aren't separate. We never were.